Hey everybody, welcome to episode 133 of Tactical Crouch. Kickedtripod here, Yiska, Volamel here. Happy Labor Day to y'all.
What does that mean?
We celebrate the workforce by only making the lowest paid workers do services for us during the day, like mall workers and fast food and restaurants. And
I bet in high granularity, right?
Huh?
what?
What's that
I bet
mean?
in high granularity.
Can you
What do you
That's
mean?
an in
Explain
joke
for
that
the
only
layman.
John should be getting, but he doesn't right now.
In high granny. Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, you. We had an argument on Discord last night about Celsius versus Fahrenheit.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
you guys
leg
were
day.
absolutely spamming me.
This is where you come in and just.
I'm sitting here doing
like,
Wild
rinse the
World
chat.
Quest and it boop, bloop, 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 and I look and it's just an argument about like Celsius and like Fahrenheit. I'm like, oh my god, these two.
Anyways, I won.
It's like 4 a.m.
So that was good.
Everyone hates decimals, dude. That slayed me.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Anyways, welcome to episode 133. Show is supported by our patrons. So if you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Follow us on Twitter at tactical_crouch. Join us on Discord at discord.me/yiskaout. Especially if you're a sub or a patron, you've got a special role and a few special channels in there waiting for you. And show records Mondays and Wednesdays at noon Pacific at twitch.tv/kickedtripod. And of course, we're on all your favorite podcast outlets and YouTube, youtube.com/tacticalcrouch. Let's get into the news brought to you by our patron producers. Yiska, take it away.
I'm clicking in.
Yeah.
Give it me. Okay. I knew it was this. Refined Bean, Frodinho, Pin, Battlecrab, Kuchikobi, Lulshin, Rex Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Chara, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B, Owen, Chris R3444, Horbjörn. I listened to this podcast, was on the toilet or in the shower, thinking of Yiska. Blaukraut bleibt Blaukraut und Brautkleid bleibt Brautkleid. I mostly stumbled through this. It was it was better than I expected.
Is that how the Heimlich was invented? Is people trying to pronounce what you just said? They're like, he's choking. We need to come up with a maneuver. And
Yes.
naturally it was German. So
Yes.
that's
yes.
how it came. Can you say that again? Blaukraut bleibt Blaukraut und Blautkleid bleibt Braukleid.
Dude, that was so good. I can't, like, I'm talking internally. Chat, that was really good. Jesus Christ. Now, okay, here's the thing. Theoretically, in order to make this very funny, this person would have had to do it twice. And I assume it's Peace Camper. But the hilarious part is you can do it once. You cannot, under any circumstances, do it twice. Like, Blaukraut bleibt Blaukraut und Brautkleid bleibt Brautkleid. Blaukraut bleibt Blaukraut und Brautkleid bleibt Brautkleid. What? Okay, I just hyped myself into actually getting that. Wow. That's amazing. I have
great.
never been able in my life to do that. I'm very
Wow.
I'm very talkative today, guys.
Now go for 3
go.
times. No, just kidding.
the
Yeah.
whole podcast.
Anyways, thanks
German.
again to our patron producers. Let's talk about the news. And this one comes from our very own Yiska, talking a little bit about Shockwave hitting the free agency, huh?
Right. So I think I need to explain a little bit because
Of course.
I think the general knowledge about contracts is not that extended. And I try to give a little elevator explanation in the article, but basically the majority of contracts are 1+1 in the Overwatch League. What that means is when you get signed, you have 1 year guaranteed, and then 1 year is a team option. So the team can say, we want to sign you for another year at the same contract conditions unless otherwise negotiated. So some of them, the team option has an inherent like upgrade in the salary or whatever, right? Of course, this contract strategy, like that is only true until now because we now have shorter durations, meaning we got these 3-week contracts and we already had the two-week before, right? The unusual part about Shockwave's contract is that there is not a team option. Okay, so it was just a 1, not a 1+1, but a 1. That means if Vancouver Titans wants to keep Shockwave around, they have to give him a new contract.
They have to pay him a premium.
Yes. And of course, they may also, logically, not collect a buyout for that.
That seems like a misplay, no? Like that seems like some big whiffs.
Seems like okay, I don't know what the buyout prices will be like, but this seems like a 100K mistake.
Yeah,
like
this seems like a massive blunder. Like, yeah, I guess you don't expect that like this team is going to be any good. Like, you don't expect any gems, but on the off chance that you get one, at least you have that clause to say, "Hey, cool, we got one, and we'll just build around him."
The thing is, maybe I don't know. They negotiated for him to not have that, to be able to walk after this, right?
That's fair.
It's also fair to say that in many cases, these +1 options aren't actually the ones that are being wholly picked up. Most of the time, or very, I don't know the frequency, right? But like, renegotiations for these contracts happen, right? That's why nobody's anymore on their year 1 contract, on the very same one, right? Theoretically, also because like if it's a 1+1, then they logically would have run out at the end of season 2 anyway, right? But if, for instance, so logically, of course, like I won't like, but there are players that are still with their season 1 rosters, right? So those would have theoretically, if the standard was always kept, would have had to re-sign at some point. We just never heard of it because like we don't see if they're getting raises or new contracts or whatnot, right? Unless the org decides to make that known, right? So it's a weird one because like in my mind, this is like a 90% Capster talent hitting the market at 0.
Yep.
Right.
And hopefully, you know, if what you're saying is true, maybe they negotiated for it. I think that's a great idea. Maybe this isn't just a complete blunder on the orgs level. Maybe this is just an actual like,
maybe,
you know, player
Shockwave
kind of favorite thing.
Was also signed 2 weeks after the rest of the like the newly signed roster. So you're early May, right? You sign these 6 players: Dalton, Suna, KSA, Shredlock, Karkar, and Wolf. You sign these players to a contract, and then they're either negotiating with Shockwave during that time, or they weren't sure about that. They could have been running out of money. Like, oh crap, we need one more person. Like, we don't know. I don't know what the costs incurred were. Like, I'm imagining that this was not a simple thing to re-budget out signing a new team in the middle of the season after losing your previous team. And so like, yes, I think you're right in the sense that Shockwave should have been signed longer, but sometimes you just don't have money. Like, I should go for the better tires on my car, but sometimes I just don't have money.
Sure.
Sometimes I just don't have the money. So like, I don't know. Like, it very well could have just been like, I don't know, this guy's been floating around tier 2. They haven't brought him up yet. There's been some excitement around them. Do we want another like Gator Hawk thing on our belt or whatever, where, you know, like they kind of just, I think they underperformed this year. But if you know what I'm saying, right? Like they came in, a lot of people put Atlanta so high specifically because those 2 players were coming in. I think it was even pre-Edison, and Sharp. And so like, I don't know. All that to say, I would love to hear the story as to why they only signed Shockwave to 1.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't part of the news, but I think it's actually super interesting to highlight as we kind of inch closer to the proper off-season kind of roster shuffle. I wonder what's going to happen with Zik, because I think, we'll get to, what Toronto looked like, but for a guy who came into this team without much expectations, I think he's been an absolute workhorse. I'd love to see him on a team that's rebuilding for next season, that needs somebody that's going to be like maybe not a star, but just a good player, just an overall, like, just solid guy to have. I think Shockwave has shown that there is some talent in tier 2. I think Kevstar obviously shows that as well. I think there's plenty of other talent in tier 2 that you can pull from. Yeah, I think it's time to actually get some new blood in here and get some pretty interesting rookies. I think we're gonna have a good graduating class next year. I have a sneaking suspicion.
Okay, here's that, like, the one thing that's like, if he was to leave, and of course that's not part of the report that there's any decisions made or whatever, right? But if he was to leave, I'd feel bad for at least the coaching staff there, because I think they deserve some like some firepower to work with. I think, like,
and to be fair, you're speaking of Shockwave or Zik, just to be clear.
No, sorry. About Shockwave, and then especially now talking about the coaching stuff, meaning Flubby, right? Mm-hmm. I think they definitely overperformed expectations
easily.
From when they had to pick up, it's like pretty short notice. It's not like a coherent one-stop shop roster. Mm-hmm. It's also like the entire logistics of it, I imagine, to be quite challenging, especially with ping and whatnot. So in general, like, that should be rewarded in some way, and hopefully also with interests in or like assurances, whatever that means for their continued employment. And of course, I can only see from the outside what this team did. I don't actually know, of course, just like with the coaching award situation, I can't know who the guy is. I just hear
it a
good
lot.
things of Flubby way before this happened, or they were even picked up. So yeah, I just hope that there's something good coming out of this.
I mean, we'll definitely get into it in the off season, or maybe even like season review on like what we hope for some of these franchises going forward. But I think Vancouver is maybe not strategically, but have found themselves in a good position for 2021. All things considered, with how 2020 ended up going for them. So exciting. Well, I won't say exciting just yet. Interesting team to look at in the off season.
Lots of potential. One to watch. American football's back this week, by the way. That's nice.
Yeah, what's up with the Lions getting Adrian Peterson? Did I see that right?
I think so.
What?
AP?
I haven't heard that name in years, and I don't like it when I see the Lions in the news.
Yeah. The Lions.
See?
The Lions. True.
Really, you're
Is this where I say whatever you just said is
okay.
Smaller story than Messi?
Minor meatball talk. I remember like every day going to high school and listening to the radio going, and the Lions have set a new record, 14 consecutive losses, the most in NFL history. It's just like, can we get like a good sports team? Like, just maybe. Every year it's just like, oh, they might make playoffs. Nope. Not today. I don't know. They just suck. Anywho.
Sometimes I wonder how
I'm
much...
a Vikings fan. I don't know. We've never won a Super Bowl, so.
Dude, if we had an Overwatch team, we'd be fucking terrible.
Do you guys believe... Okay, here's my theory, right?
Yeah, okay.
Do you guys believe that a good sports team changes sort of like at least a little bit the atmosphere of the city?
Yes.
Right? Because I remember vividly the summer where we hosted the World Cup.
Yeah.
And like that, from my experience, fundamentally changed Germany as a self-understanding culture Like we used to be very proud of not being proud to be German.
Yeah.
And now we kind of sometimes can bring a flag somewhere, right? Like that's just like the transformation.
Only when you have the correct permit and you filled out the correct paperwork and you've, okayed it through 4 or 5 different people and your state governor and the senator has to give you a letter of recommendation. And
yeah. You have to eat exactly 461 grams of sauerkraut in front of them in order to verify. That's true. Yeah.
Bratwurst, yeah. I love bratwurst. Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you for brats. Minnesotans have perfected the brat, but thank you for introducing it to the world.
Oh boy, here we go. Oh boy,
this man lives in carbon.
You better
because we cook it in Fahrenheit. So we have have a lot closer,
I knew this was coming back.
We have a lot better understanding of the temperature. At which we roast our dogs.
Question.
Yeah.
This might just like out me as an absolute papage.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go.
Is it just an American thing to do like beer brats? Because it feels like a very American thing to do beer brats.
Can you explain what that is?
From my understanding, I've never made them, but I've only heard like people make them and I've had them and they're quite good. It's just brats cooked in beer.
We do something similar, yeah. It's not it's not often though. It's more like a thing like, I don't know, when someone has like a barbecue or whatever, like.
Right, yeah.
It's not often for us either. It's just for dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day.
So the other 2/3
just one of the meals. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just like sausages swimming in beer is sort of our culture. Like,
I mean, it definitely is. That's why I was like, I don't know. Maybe this is like an American thing that we just bastardize, where you just take like something good from another country. It's like, what if we just added alcohol to it? Yeah. Like it just seems like a very us thing. But I'm glad that it's
good. I don't like beer. I don't like beer, but I love beer brat. I love a good beer brat. Beer brat. I can't even say that for a tongue twister. Send me in beer brat, and I can't say that.
Beer brat stays beer brat and whatever. But there's this Simpson episode. I think it's a Halloween episode where.
So sorry about this, by the way. I do have
beer-filled
timestamps
Germans,
for this.
And that's like a huge cult thing in Germany. Like at least where I'm from. Like he like either he has a dream or it's like a Halloween episode, and he just like has these like these little guys that have like lederhosen on, and they are like filled up with beer, and he just eats them, and he just goes, like beer-filled Germans, and it's just like.
Are they like gummies or like?
No, it's just like people that he just snacks.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'm sorry, chat. And all the listeners out there. Again, timestamps for YouTube are there, but so you can skip ahead to the ones. But we're done now. We're coming back to it.
Everybody likes some banter. We'll get to the games. Don't worry.
We are going to get to the games. Let's get to the games right now, actually. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Sound good? Great.
Sounds good.
Whew, we're going to NA first, boys. NA first. Okay. Let's talk about, we're just going to kind of go chronologically-ish on all of that. And we're going to start with the single elimination knockouts. Boston.
Play-ins. Yeah.
Boston coming in, I would say upsetting the Houston Outlaws, a team that...
certainly.
A team that not only was expected to win, but a few had painted as a little bit of a dark horse to maybe make a little bit of a run in the losers bracket later on. That did not happen.
No, not at all.
Why did that not happen?
It's difficult. So again, this disclaimer, it's difficult to tell why exactly a lot of these teams have lost. In particular, because we don't have a ton of data points for this meta in particular. Obviously the patch coming in, changing up everything. I was kind of one of the brow beaters that said that Hog wasn't going to get played. Obviously it has. And obviously Houston opted into that, and it sounded like Houston's been doing incredibly well behind the scenes once again, something that has kind of plagued them all season long. and their stage performance was not that. I don't know why that is. It's difficult to tell. I don't know that maybe even I don't know. I can't. I won't speculate. I don't think it's fair to speculate that in like looking at Paris. It's like I have ideas, but it's like, is it worth kind of commenting on? I think it could be a little bit dangerous, but yeah, it's disappointing. I think Houston has had potential all season, but they've never just like shown what they truly could be on stage. And yeah,
okay,
early exit.
Right.
Disappointing.
Are we done with the measure takes? Do we just roll out?
If you'd like to strike the match, I'll be behind you.
So first one, the idea that Houston's comp was bad makes me tilt off the planet.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad comp. To be fair, like I'll take that and hold that L, because I was very critical because this was the first game of the play-in, so I was like, I don't see how like this can work. Like I'm interested to see if like more teams play like this, because I don't see this like working within what I think of Overwatch to be. Obviously that's the case. Houston's comp should, and it kind of makes sense for them to be able to do that. They're a team that probably doesn't have a ton of so looking at specifically this meta, I don't think that they were like particularly well situated to like run a lot of the dive, school of thought. So I think working with the hog stuff makes a lot of sense for them. They have blase, they have hydration, they can kind of run this Washington-esque style. Makes a lot of sense. I don't think the comp was necessarily bad. I just think,
yeah, it's also the idea that just because the elements of a comp are Mercy Ashe against Pharah Ashe, and therefore Boston's comp is somehow a counter or a hard counter to it, is so unreal. Like, I think I'm pretty sure these two comps over the scrims last week, like it's like 70-30 for the Pharah comp that they win that. That it's the other way around. Like, you guys don't understand. That wasn't a strategical loss. Now, of course, okay, here's the thing. If you never encounter anything that beats your stuff, how could you, like, where's the incentive to have a second thing? And of course, maybe you should be robust in some regard and have like an idea, or ideally would have had baked in the ability into the players to come up with a solution, or you use the halftime.
Sure.
I'll also tell you that is much easier for some rosters that have language that can transport transitive properties. So hybrid rosters coming up with things on the fly is a lot harder to explain exactly how you think things should go than rosters that don't have a language problem, right? Also, it's on the quality of the players. How flexible are they? Are they system players? Are they system inventing players? Like, how does that fly in actual flight? How does that work, right? So,
which is, I think, a theme. I think that whole kind of point that you just made has been a theme for a lot of these more like head scratching matches where it's like, should you be losing to this team when we look at the regular season score? With the context of this patch kind of eliminating, or at least, challenging the idea of main tanks on certain maps, or maybe even as a style as a whole. Is there enough time to be robust? That's kind of my question to the Overwatch League coaches. It's like, do you feel like you were given enough time to be robust? Do you feel like you were given enough time to kind of create a blockade of different compositions to kind of fall back on if the first one kind of, doesn't necessarily hit as strong as you like?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what we deserve is a little much, but that's what's going to happen when you have playoff patches. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And as Albert, GM of Florida, is saying in our chat, they had an early read on the best comp for them, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it just didn't manifest a match. They've played the Pharah comp into the Ashe comps in Scrim and did so well. It's not like they weren't prepped to handle it. And that is also as far as I know, the story of the season for Houston. Like maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like we were already after the pretty rocky season 2-7 start with Dream On, and that back then they were already pretty good. Like people were like good teams were screaming them. They liked screaming them because like
they were good.
They were legit, right? If you then cannot bring it onto the match, that's a hard problem to handle, right? And it probably also requires resources beyond a team that had to let go of a general manager and a coach in the middle of the season, possibly, right? Now, of course, you cannot excuse everything that's happening there, right? Like the same thing could be said for Valiant, and they prevailed throughout the season. Of course, you cannot expect everyone to be a miracle worker and or a very good talent scout, right? Also, one major thing that Valiant had going for them this season is that they basically had like a tabula rasa position where they actually were in a position to just second guess everyone on the team and have them fight for their spot and earn their spot without like these guaranteed contracts and resources locked up, right? So yeah, it's at the end of the day, Houston Outlaws finish last in the NA playoffs. And that's a very sobering realization for a team that did well in scrims and also was projected to be doing better than they were. And of course, like during the midseason, they had actually kind of like an uptick, but they never found like the potential that this roster by the quality of their parts, at least from the outside. And let's keep in mind, these parts usually show themselves to be valuable in different systems. So Echo, I'm thinking, or even Jackson Repel on Korean rosters. So that is a change, right? So,
and to be fair, two quick kind of defense points for Houston. I think I'm still very intrigued about what Raucus did for this roster. So losing him, obviously, kind of mid-season, had to have done something. And if I'm understanding what Yiska is saying, and maybe he can kind of chime in if I'm misrepresenting the point. The idea here isn't the whole boring scrim bucks argument. This is a ongoing theme for this team where they consistently are performing in practice all season long, higher than what they're able to show on match day, and they just haven't been able to shake it. Don't know why. Difficult to tell. Is it resources? I don't know. It's disappointing to see. The players there are good. Just flat out. Like easily could be a mid-pack team. There's just something not clicking, and it's difficult to tell why. I don't know.
It's just as much like that entire point is not an entire absolvement of responsibility for anyone involved. It's just like a big question mark where, like, just like Albert again said in our chat, like sometimes you just have these metas where you're doing well in that specific meta, and then match day comes and you run into something and like, or no, even if you see something that you saw before, you just can't bring it on that day. Sure. Now, that quality is about like if your team has that as a problem, or if it's a problem of the system of that we're playing, is probably decided based on the frequency these issues happen, right? Yeah. Like if it happens twice over the season where you dominate two metas or two hero pools, and then in the end you don't bring it on the server, but every other time you do, it's very different than when that happens half of the weeks, right? So the frequency in that would have to be evaluated, and yeah, it's a little rough. Like it's like that's one of the most frustrating issues to have, I would imagine. To think you have done everything and go with a lot of confidence into that, and then also like just like over the season you get hammered and wait, we're doing everything we can in scrims, and then when it's match day, like, you know, there's like this confidence thing where it's like you're stepping on the broken ankle every single time, right? Like it's not a good mechanism to have.
Yep. Sad exit.
Sad. Okay. Any other thoughts on the Boston side of things at all, or?
I think this was like the beginning of like seeing the world burn. Like, is this just the year that Boston makes it to playoffs and like gives it the old college try and knocks someone out? Doesn't look like it was Boston, but we'll get to that team.
Let's get to that team. The Washington Justice had man, I don't even know where to start. So Justice go the distance against Shock. So they go 5 maps against Shock. Sweep Vancouver, Fuel, and Paris.
Yep.
Analyze me this, please. Tell me. So is this? Let's talk about the elephant in the room if we can. Obviously,
Sure.
Washington Justice signed Decay. Not only that, they signed Decay through what would you call it, a loophole? A convenient oversight, whatever you want to call it, but essentially it allowed Decay to be signed after the signing window. And Decay shows up to the Washington Justice. The Washington Justice have already shown these kind of little sparks of kind of like, ooh, they get this missing piece. Decay comes in, and then we see a totally brand new Justice, and a team that is really taking it to really good teams.
Yep.
Before we even talk about specifically how are you feeling about that right now?
Bad. Not good. Okay, to kind of dive into that. I get where the league's coming from, and I hope that this isn't some sort of nefarious, like, oh, well, the ownership's, pissed at the league, so we have to throw him a bone, and we need Decay in the league because he pulls numbers. Like, I hope it's not that. I don't believe that it's that. I don't think it's that. I'm just like crossing my fingers, like, please, God, don't let that be like what actually happened. What I think happened is that teams were worried going into playoffs that COVID could get worse and they need the flexibility to bring in players. Just so happens that the Justice use that to sign one of the best players in the league. And like you're saying, I don't think this is solely Decay's doing that the Justice are actually pulling it together. I think they have been on the uptrend, as much as we want to kind of grimace at the idea that the Justice could be a good team. I think it's a good thing that they're at least a feasible team right now. We'll get into maybe Wednesday on what the Justice might be able to do. Spoiler, I think they might be able to do a couple more damages before they exit the league. But yeah, Decay as a whole, Decay's move to Washington, it's just frustrating. Is it there's nobody really to point a finger at, because it's like I understand if there was a little bit more communication, maybe I'm giving the league more benefit of the doubt than they deserve. I don't know. I don't think I'd blame Justice here, right? Like, if you're given the chance to sign one of the best players in the league past the signing date, wouldn't you? I don't know. Like, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't. It's unfortunate that that's the case. I don't know. It just doesn't feel good.
Yiska, you are the competition first guy, I think, more than any of us when it comes to this. The competitive integrity, the spirit of the game, all that kind of stuff. This happens here. They knock out the Dallas Fuel. They knock out the Paris Eternal.
Yeah.
A number 3 seed for the season. All that hard work out the window. Where's your head at right now? How much sauerkraut and beer have you had in the past 36 hours?
461 gram.
Can you convert that to Fahrenheit, please?
Times this one.
You can't
600
grams to
24.
Fahrenheit.
Right.
Can't convert grams.
That just happened though. Right. So I think we have to sort of compartmentalize 3 issues that we see there, right? First one is Justice was allowed to sign Decay, right? Is that an inherent loophole exploitation? We can discuss that. It's a
I think we did.
It's certainly like a minor quibble that I have, right? But it's like this, and all the points need to be seen in conjunction, not like independent from each other, right? Yeah. The second point is that the Justice were allowed, or the playoff system allows teams like this to play in that, right? Mm-hmm. Now, here's my thing. Based on the third point, which is we have a playoff patch, don't actually mind that. And I actually argued against for this point last season, based on one simple fact. I want competitive playoffs. Sure. Last season, I argued, funnily enough, with the same team, saying, what if the Washington Justice are definitively the best stage 4 team? We go into the playoffs with the same patch, which we didn't end up happening because Sigma came in, but anyway. And then we actually don't have the best team in playoffs. So we argued about like how to make the season more fun. We could have had a cup at the end. It would have been like a rigorous process through which they qualify, right? Sure. If you want to play playoff thing, then you got to adapt it to sort of like the realities of the game. This season, I said, like, if we have these hero pool structures and we select for that, then we also have to select or like use that selection method and play that out in playoffs. We didn't. We're changing everything about this game. And as a result, a healthy amount of blame for this situation is to be put on the patch, right? And not necessarily on the two other, not only on the two other aspects. A, Decay was able to be signed, and B, Washington was able to play in the playoffs. Now, I feel the biggest problem for me is the patch, because teams like the Paris Eternal, who were on an upwards trajectory throughout the season, managed to win a tournament, can look like this. Yep. That is my problem. We have identified that there are teams that have a certain amount of quality to overcome most metas. And then the tier 1.5 can like cover 80% of the metas. And if you hit them in the 20%, it gets very close. This time around, it actually looks like Shock is one of the tier 1.5 teams, or there's actually like within the tier 1 teams, there's also a 10% probability of hitting them in a way that makes it scary.
I think that's more likely.
Like, Justice drew that match. Let's be honest. If you're 2-0 up, there are very few scenarios where, like, even if you get countercomped during, like, due to corrections in the halftime, you can countercorrect during this, right? It's entirely possible. You had their number, you have a huge advantage. It's like being 2-0 up is like an 80% win in most scenarios then, right? So how is that possible? How is it possible that Team 18 in the league, is it Team 18 or Team 19? I mean, we cannot really aggregate.
Sure, whatever.
Comes in, gets one more player, because like Justice wasn't significantly better than that. Even with their pickups,
is what it says on our spreadsheet. By the way,
right. 4 wins,
and 17, minus 33 map differential. That's including bonus wins.
Let's also not forget, part of that property, why I think Shock dropped into tier 1.5 now, is because they had to bleed a bunch of players. Yep. They wouldn't have like any Zarya issues if Sinatra was still here. Nope. If they wanted to invest the same, like, Suminsu is still out there, right? By the way, for everyone, just like public service announcement, if Zarya stays around, there's a Suminsu out there in the world. But like that is, it's frustrating. And okay, we watched together and I was delighted that this happened. Mm-hmm. I wanted them to win against the Shocks 3-0 East Peace clap in order to clearly show just how broken this system is. If they 3-0 Justice, there's no argument anymore for you that this is a fine system. The most dominant team in the Overwatch history gets clapped out in a game that actually means a lot. And then, of course, there would be the defenders. Oh, yeah, well, last year, upper bracket, lower bracket.
Yes.
And yeah, but they, like, it's not like the Shock, like, on purpose lose that match, right?
No.
Now, it's, of course, like, there's something to be said about the ability to use that specific loophole in that
most certainly helps.
Outside,
I won't claim that it's the only thing, though. Outside
the spirit of the rule that was communicated to the public. I don't know if that's actually what's internally lived.
Mhm.
And I hope for other teams to ridiculously exploit that, possibly like for the top 4 at least, but possibly even sooner.
Yep.
And like now, like you can think about like the positive thing for me is here. I don't believe the Justice will disappoint in the next match. That's good.
Nope.
We're going to have a good playoff match the next weeks, right? With the Justice around.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have a good like the quality of the remaining teams will probably reliably deliver pretty good matches. That's good. That's what you want for the playoffs.
By the way,
right?
for those just kind of wanting to know who that is, it's Washington against Valiant.
Valiant.
And then they play the winners of Reign versus Mayhem.
A word.
So that should be fun. And they play the losers of Philly versus Shock.
Okay, so Albert says in chat that it's not an easy rule to exploit. You need a player to retire or to refuse or be unable to travel. Is it really that hard to have a player refuse? I'm just asking this ignorantly. It doesn't seem that hard. Can Uncle refuse to travel for the fuel had they stayed in?
I would guess.
I don't know if it has like it's not like could they refuse, it's would they, right?
Would they? Yeah, that's the kind of devil's argument.
I think it would be easier.
Could you coerce a player into refusing so that you could sign a better player once you got to top 4 or like even earlier?
Look, I wouldn't put it past people that actually want their team to succeed. It's like, for instance,
sure. I think there are some people who would do that. I think there are some people who would do that. I think there are more people who wouldn't.
Here's the thing. Let's say Valiant gets top 4. It's top 2 in NA. They have to go to Korea. And a meta crystallizes where Apply can't really help his team. They really desperately need a new tank or something.
Sure.
What exactly holds him back from just saying I can't go?
Nothing.
Like it's
nothing stops him. But
are we gonna have a new Chipsa rule?
But would they?
The thing is, like, it really reminds me of like when I had to do mandatory military service, and there was like a way where you could just say, yeah, I'm basically pacifist. Please, let me do social services or something like that. That's just like a letter you write without really clearly holding that intention, with the best intentions for everyone else, because maybe you want to work like in a retirement home or whatever, right? Like, if you really truly believe that you cannot contribute to your team or could not contribute better, and you're financially being taken care of the same way, is that hard? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It doesn't feel that way, right?
Yeah.
So, also, like, for that rule to be applied that way, I wonder what kind of forces are at play there. Like, that shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't. And if it happened like this, it shouldn't have happened before top 4, based on the spirit of the rule that was communicated to us, right? If your team then falls under the minimum requirements of players, that's a disqualification. By rules, right?
Yeah, I don't understand why these rules keep getting more and more malleable. I get COVID is a thing. I understand that. But to Yiska's point, if this is about remedying and continuing the circus as we travel to, into 2021 and into the, grand finals as we're going to Asia, why is a team able to kind of loophole in one of the best players in the league who undoubtedly has helped them, make this kind of dangerous lower bracket run? It's just disappointing again.
Yeah, apparently, like by the wording of the official rule, it doesn't specify that you would have to fall under the minimum amount of players.
So that's on the blog post. I don't know if there's an official rule PDF thing that expands on the rule more.
Right.
The coaches would have access to those things. But here's what the blog post says. As we continue to plan for the 2020 postseason, we are making a change to roster rules for the season to ensure teams can continue to compete as potential operational issues arise. From now until the end of the 2020 Overwatch League season, and this came out on August 11th, from now until the end of the 2020 Overwatch League season, if a team as a player retire, become unavailable to play due to COVID-19, or elect not to travel, that team may sign a free agent to replace that player. Any such replacement signing must expire at the end of the 2020 season, and those players will become free agents for the 2021 season. Due to visa timelines and safety planning, free agents must meet one of the following criteria to compete in the playoffs under this provision. The free agent must have citizenship for a country in Asia, and the free agent must have an existing visa to travel to countries in Asia.
Yep. So to your point, Yiska, if AKM just happens to come down with a cough, just happens to be a little ill that day, and the Dallas Fuel makes it to top 4, what's stopping them?
Okay. I don't know. I don't think it's a big problem. But if I'm the Fusion and I think I get a % more win chance by signing Sumansu as my Zarya, and Chipsa therefore can't fly out because he can only travel by boat.
Yep.
Then why not? By the spirit of the rule anyway. I'm not saying that that's the intention for the Fusion to do that, but that's the loophole you built for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is we have such malleability in the rules, which is a positive aspect of this league that needs to be flexible to the challenges that it faces in the light of the global pandemic, right? And in the light of waning viewership. What it isn't good is that we take the property of malleability and let us be thrown around with it and have people exploit it to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I love that Decay is in playoffs. Yeah. I love that a player like this gets to compete there. I selfishly say that's kind of nice. It would have really
been disappointing to see him not in playoffs as that kind of caliber of player. It would have been disappointing to not see him in the league past the Dallas Fuel kerfuffle.
Yeah.
So it is bittersweet in a way.
So Christopher does bring up an interesting point. He says, I felt like players that came in on the rule should only be allowed to play after travel. Which is, I think, a little bit interesting. Right? They're not traveling. There are a few other provisions there, right? Like if they fall ill to COVID, was I think one of them, right? So that kind of doesn't what if somebody actually genuinely does get sick and then you can't field that player? But even then, I think that there are ways that you can, have the league front office determine the
that's that whole elect not to travel. I can just choose not to travel, and then Decay comes in and Justice wins the Overwatch League. That's a thing. And yes, that is unfortunate with COVID, but that's the kind of openness to the rules that you've built, and we're going to reap what we sow. And that's what we've chosen to sow. So this is what we're going to get. I'm not super, it feels bad, overall net negative for my opinion, but we do get to see another good team in the playoffs. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at seeing Decay perform extremely well in the Justice. Not mad at that. Am I mad at looking at Paris out of the league after winning an event? Yes, I am.
That's the problem. That's the problem in all of this.
But that's not justice, though. That's not justice.
Yes, that's definitely
partly justice, but it's not justice.
The first two attributes of it, like Decay being signed, Washington being able to participate in that, Like, that's not the sad part about the Paris story. The sad part is that this team clearly wasn't as good as it was in aggregate over the season. And that we didn't use the same method to determine that they are a good team to determine if they can win the league. That's the problem.
I mean, can we talk about, there might even be a bigger problem than that? It's the fact that we have end of season playoffs that are played on a different patch than the other 4 stages completely, and or whatever stages, breaks, however you want to talk about it.
Sure.
And so in the end, you don't really have a representative way to crown the top anyway, especially when none of the teams are disqualified due to or don't qualify because they don't have a good enough record. Everybody was in, right?
Everybody.
Like, I'm sorry, the Uprising shouldn't have been in there. The Justice shouldn't have been in there. I get
Outlaws
we're kind of in
yep.
an unprecedented situation here.
Mm.
And a lot of it is scuffed, but the idea of even just like an end of season playoffs, and we've talked about this before on the show, it loses a lot of its value once you realize that a team that's good enough to qualify plus getting the meta that they want or need can win a league that ultimately doesn't feel deserving for them to have won.
Nope. And it's a point that I've kind of defended. I've kind of leaned into the whole unprecedented, hero pools being quite chaotic. I think it's fair to have these teams in here. I'm leaning into or really attacking the idea of having these playoff patches. It's very clear to me that the direction of this game is still unclear. Every patch could just be an oopsie, and I think we hit an oopsie.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It was always like this. Every end of season patch was a risk like this. The fact that it didn't hit, if anything, speaks to the quality of those teams to be able to adapt. But it is a problem, and I don't care that another esports does that. That's not an argument at all. That's also a trash and never as severe as it is with us. Keep in mind that we're playing a meta archetype that, as far as I can remember, with like many teams playing double off tanks, was actually never a thing, and most definitely not this season.
Nope.
So the patch isn't just that we have a playoff patch is a problem. The fact that when we play 70% of double shield this season and the devs say that's a bad idea, then the timing is ridiculously off. Yeah, and now we're playing on this patch for the rest of the season while the world has moved on.
So I don't even know if we should talk about this right now. We're actually going to table this because I want to have a conversation about what does the ideal Overwatch League format look like? Because obviously this isn't it. I've always been I think really against just the season-long slog of regular season games, the baseball
that's fair.
The type stuff. I understand why it works for some things. I don't think it works very well for Overwatch League. I think that there's better solutions for it. I think you can raise the stakes for those incremental tournaments that are on specific patches.
Sure.
I think that there's a lot of good ways to do that, but we're not going to talk about that
interesting
today.
Ways, yeah.
We are going to. So any more thoughts on the Justice in general before we
I feel like it's a little unfair because we're talking about the org around them, we're talking about the ownership, we're talking about what they were able to do. Let's also say Stitch looked way better than I would have ever imagined.
It did look good.
Him still being able to play that. The meta really fell into the favor also by what who these players were able to play, but the heroes that they are able to play, they also play well. I cannot let's not deny them the quality because these players, there's no blame on them, right? Or even the coaches. You do whatever, if you are allowed to do this is a competitive format. If I can get away with it without it being considered cheating in some form or not playing by the rules, I take that, right? If they have to drag me out by my teeth, right?
Yep.
So
I don't even believe that remove Decay from this and put in your average, think of the average, okay, Zarya. I still think Justice are a decent team. I don't think that I genuinely wonder if they still beat Paris. I don't think we'll get to Paris on why I think they lost.
Would they get there? What was the bracket again?
I think they would have got there. So Justice has to play Titans. I think they could probably beat Titans with the way that they're playing this meta.
Yeah.
They have to play the Fuel, which again I think is very, very doable. Maybe not 3-0s, maybe not sweeps.
Okay. Here's the thing though. You gotta consider if they don't have Decay and they don't look this dominant, are they being picked so late? Right? In the draft.
Sure. That's agreeable. I can agree with that. Maybe if we're in this hypothetical, Dallas still has Decay. Do they beat a Dallas with Decay or vice versa? Hard question to answer. I do think this is just a genuinely good team right now with this playoff patch. They have a good read on things. Tuba looks very good. Stitch looks back in form. Aimgod looks fantastic. Arc looks good. Janu looks good. The front line looks good. This is a good team right now, and I credit where credit's due. I want to make that a theme on this podcast where like I'm going to tell you you're poop when you're poop, but I'm also going to give you credit when you're actually performing. And I think Justice is performing. It's not just Decay. I want to make that very, very clear to everybody in chat, everybody watching on YouTube, all you YouTube frogs. This isn't just we signed Decay and we win. No. This is a good team. This team is performing across the board very, very well.
Yeah. Great.
Let's go on to a happier note. Not that this was a sad note, but let's talk about the Philadelphia Fusion for a second. This was
dude.
Do we say it?
Say it. Say it.
I think they're clearly, at least from projections as of today, clearly the strongest team in NA.
I'll give you one more, Joe. They're now favored to win the Overwatch League.
I don't know about that.
Whoa.
I think the way the dominance, like also, of course, it has to do with how you think those metas match up.
Sure.
Between the scenes. I think Philly just looks monstrous right now.
They look good.
You working on an article with Chris right now? Is that what's going on here?
We're done simping.
Is that it? That's what that sounds like to me.
No.
I think they're the team that has the best chance of beating Shanghai as of today. I'm not impressed with Shock. I think I genuinely wonder how much Hog or double flex tank, if we're going to call it that, was actually scrimmed in Asia. If that's the case, I wonder how much extra effective practice a team like Shanghai has coming into the playoffs. And then I look at how much travel actually has to be done. What the quarantine practice. There's a lot of variables for these NA teams going to Asia. And yeah, I mean, maybe we can get into that more on Wednesday, but my chips are still on whatever Asia team gets out in first, probably winning the Overwatch League, just as of today.
Can I just say though, like I don't want to write off the Shock yet. I'm not ready to, just because they had a tough first week and a meta that changed pretty quickly that we've seen
100%
Shock be a little bit slower to kind of adapt to in the past. Like they've got a little bit of that NYXL syndrome where it's, I guess season one NYXL
they're slow to get off the line. This isn't
slow.
like a narrative anymore.
They know what's at stake. Coach Krusty is probably working right now. He's going to make it happen. They're going to be fine. I don't know if they're actually going to beat Philly or not, but I really, every time I look at this, I don't see a way in which Philly and Shock aren't shoulders and above the best two teams in NA and aren't the ones traveling. And I think ultimately for everything that's sucked in this bracket, that's my last like solace that I have on this bracket is even with all the misrepresented results and all the things that shouldn't have happened, the two best teams are still looking to getting out of NA and traveling.
It is actually legitimately scary that Shock still have an extra life.
It is scary, but it's also terrifying to think about. Let's say the Justice, happened to squeak by the Valiant. Let's say the Justice just happens to topple whoever wins out of Reign Mayhem. Then they have to play the Shock, a team who they admittedly took to game 5. Maybe they eat their Cheerios that day. Maybe they have their Wheaties. Maybe they wake up on the right side of the bed. The Washington Justice, there are worlds. I'm pulling a Doctor Strange. Not many worlds, but there are worlds where the Philadelphia Fusion advances your first seed in North America.
Yeah.
And the Washington Justice advances your second seed.
Yeah.
That is a world that exists.
No, that their match against Shock was a 60-40 as it presented itself. And a 60-40 goes right 40% of the time, my friends. Like that, if it gets this far, we're in scary, like.
Now, I think we are misrepresenting that point a little bit. They do have to get through two very strong teams before two. Yeah, no, Valiant is a good team, right? I still think that match is not like decided either way. We'll get to that on Wednesday. I think the next match after that, whether it be Rain Mayhem, I don't think that's decided either way. And I don't expect the Shock just to be sitting on their hands since their quarterfinals match and just not have improved or not have practiced and don't look to try and make that 60-40 a little spaced apart, give themselves a little bit more ground to be able to kind of win that match. But that said, there's a world where 4 wins get you a grand final appearance.
Yeah.
And selfishly, I'm not mad at it because if they're the best team, then they're the best team, and that's the team I want to see compete. But should they have been allowed to compete? Should Decay have been on this team to begin with? Should we be patching the game?
We're not going back.
Yeah,
we're not going back there.
Revisit all those questions, apply that here, and you see my point.
Yeah, go back 20 minutes, re-listen to that conversation. We're back here. And we're going to be talking about it in the off season, so it's coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Anything specifically stand out about why the Fusion did so well? They were number 1 seeds, so they got, to pick their opponents. They're top of the bracket. They probably had a pretty good idea who they were facing for the first 2. I'd be interested to hear if that's what Christopher had planned on. But I would assume probably so. But they just look good.
They look fantastic. Coordinated as all hell. Can play both styles really well. If there was a team, I think there are teams right now that have like a very full playbook, and I think Philadelphia has a very deep playbook that they can call upon, and I don't think we've seen most of it just yet. And that's not to say that I think Philadelphia is saving strats by any means, but I think if they wanted to, I think they could pull out some goofy stuff and do incredibly well. I think this is a team that's very deep. A lot of the same talking points we went into the season talking about Philadelphia. This is a talent stacked roster, and I think you're starting to see that really come to light.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's then. Can we hop over to Asia? Does that sound okay? Any other thoughts on?
Do we want to give our commiserations to Paris? Now that they've
say farewell to Paris, we definitely can.
I think we gotta.
I mean, there's still. Let's talk about like in one group of these other 3 teams, because they're sort of like in the same probability cloud for me now, in the same tier, if you want.
Sure.
Which is, of course, Valiant, Florida, and Rain, right?
Okay.
Of course, 2 of them, like Florida and Rain, will play each other. Do you have a clear favorite there, Joe? Because I don't know how the hell this game is going.
No, not particularly, but that's also because I don't have the best read on things. I need to look at these teams a little bit more granularly to really kind of see where their strengths lie. Their strengths, wane a little bit. Atlanta seems a little bit, just from like the offset, seems a little bit more hog agreeable. Where Florida seems to be able to field both sides of the fence a little bit easier. That said, that could change. I think it's been very interesting to see that the teams coming in from play-ins are the teams that really rely on hog, whereas a lot of the teams that are in the quarterfinals or have had the top seeds aren't as locked into that as a style. I think that's going to be a trend going forward. I really think we're going to see hog slow down quite a lot, which could spell disaster for some teams that have relied on it a little bit more heavily.
And like also just looking, quickly break down. Like we kind of see that Valiant and Florida kind of the same. Like it's a 5 mapper, pretty close. then like what really surprised me is just how dominant they were over the Gladiators.
Sure.
Of course, like the Gladiators didn't actually. No, they did. Like, but the last two matches were kind of rough for them. And then the Reign is sort of weird to me. Okay. I don't know. Do you think like how do they match up to these other two?
That's the thing, is it like it's so difficult because I have to fight myself to not look at a lot of the regular season evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I was to look at the regular season evidence, I don't think Justice has a chance in hell that they beat the Valiant. But I think it's very clear that they do, and maybe they're even favored. Again, we'll get to that on Wednesday. I hate to be that guy, and I openly criticize people who do this, but I genuinely do not know. It's going to take a lot of like spot checking for the Reign to kind of make me push them forward. My gut tells me it's Florida, but it's difficult to say.
Yeah,
it is difficult. It's a difficult match to call, and I don't think the next one is either. I don't think it's cut and dry. I don't think there is a clear favorite. I think there are arguments on both sides of the fence that you could say Justice makes it out. You could say Valiant, clutches it. They have the coaching staff. They have the right players. They have a wider playbook, which I don't think is necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
I like their tempo a little bit more. I think if Justice continue to lean into the hog, and teams are getting more, or they're receiving more practice on and against it, maybe they're more apt to beat it. Maybe they get their road stopped here. There's a lot of variables in this new Overwatch that are not easy. Not easy to call. It's a hard one.
Yeah. We want to just, without John, just move on to Asia.
I wanted to talk about Paris, you goon.
Okay. Then wax lyrically, please.
I'm sad.
Right.
No, that's not it. So for all the Paris fans, for all the Frenchies out there that are wondering why, I think all season long we've seen them kind of struggle to adapt to hero pools in particular. And I think this is such a big change into like the dynamic of Overwatch that I view this kind of similarly to hero pools, or at least analogous in some way, that it did not look like they were adequately prepared. I was not. I think their control performance against the Justice in particular was flat. It looked like on map 3 they had something planned, and I don't think like the sparkle on Zarya is like an admission of like, we don't know what we're doing, we're putting sparkle on Zarya just because they hadn't run that 2 maps before. If you look at Volskaya Industries Point A in particular, that map in particular, there has been a historic trend to be able to play these long range hit scans, so that makes you a little bit more predisposed to maybe play Hog Zarya. Maybe they thought it was just better. They just did not perform. I don't think this was the patch for them. I won't say that they're a patch team, because I genuinely think that they are a good team across the entire season. But this is such a big patch that you can have swings like the Justice. You can have swings like the Paris. Like Yiska's kind of said, these tier 1.5 teams, you can hit the numbers the right way and they drop out. So I it's sad to see. I'm sad to see him go, because there was a lot of hope. There was a lot of brackets that had Paris going pretty deep, and I think rightfully so. I think that's a very fair take. But that's what you get with playoff patches. That's what you get with hero pools. That's the seeds that we've sown all season, and that's what we harvest. So if that's not something you're looking for, voice your opinion. I don't know how else to put it.
Did you mention about why XZ was missing, or felt that he underperformed?
No, we didn't.
I thought he did pretty good on Volskaya in particular, but
I think he did fine. But XZ had, I'm gonna make sure I find this tweet. Posted out a tweet saying that essentially he didn't practice all week. I couldn't participate in practice for a week due to health problems, and I played suddenly on the day of the competition. Nico and Soon filled my vacancy well, and all the team members worked hard and did well. So there's also like that aspect, right, where it's just kind of like,
sure, yeah, I didn't catch that. That's a good. I mean, that has to be added into that as well. It sucks. It's really unfortunate that a team with that kind of potential kind of got gambled out. Yeah, XE couldn't play 100%, and that's really not gonna help the situation. But yeah, I don't know. Rest in pepperonis, Paris.
Paris, you were fun.
Hopefully we'll see you next
I think
season.
you were one of the highlights of my season as far as just teams to follow and watch. We were way wrong on them.
I wouldn't take away from the season performance as a whole. I think the stuff that they were able to do this season against the odds, against a lot of people really questioning if this roster would work, I think was fantastic, if I do say so myself. So cheers to you. Cheers to the French fans. You have a team to cheer for. Cheers to the European fans out there that actually have a team to cheer for now that's actually good.
Yeah.
We'll see in 2021.
Clap them off. Yep. Clapping them off.
Yep.
And let's go on and talk about Asia, because
let's get to Asia.
This I don't know, this episode's getting a little long in the tooth.
A little bit. lot of games, to be fair. A
lot of games. And
True, yeah.
So we're heading over to the Asia side, and let's start looking at this bracket. We'll kind of just do the same thing, kind of go chronologically here. London does not overcome Chengdu, which I think was I the only one who picked London?
I think.
I might have been.
Yeah, I think so.
So anyways, London's gone. Any thoughts on that? Like that, honestly, I feel like that's kind of a sad farewell.
Very sad
in itself. I think London is the Atlanta Reign of Asia, where they should have been a lot better. And they should have done
I can see that.
More.
I kind of position them almost like a Bizarro Valiant, where they came in with like next to no expectations, and rumor had it that they were like absolutely inting, like not performing well preseason practice at all, and people were very down on them. Coming into NA, didn't look half bad, kind of exceeded expectations a little bit. Not a good team. Still probably around bottom 5, but not completely what we were sold in the preseason. Obviously, with the travel and what, them moving to Asia for whatever reason, never really got to pan out. Probably didn't help morale much not to be able to beat up on Boston and maybe take a couple games off the regular season justice, if we're gonna call them that. Yeah, a little bit disappointing there. I think. Difficult region as well.
Yep. So
good players. I hope the best for them. I hope they land on their feet in 2021. I think they have a good core to build around. So yeah.
So the next day, Chengdu turns around and they play NYXL. They lose in 5 maps.
Yep.
What does that say to you about NYXL right now?
It's difficult because it's this patch. Is it NYXL? Is it this patch? Asia in general seems to be very dive centric, whether that's ball dive with Chengdu, Monkey obviously being quite the staple, and another school of thought, or the leader of the opposite school of thought when compared to the Hog double flex tank style. Sabiolbi looks pretty good. Outside of that, yeah, I don't know how far NYXL goes. I really don't. It is weird to me to look at like Seoul's game versus Guangzhou and look at the oddity and compositions that they're running. Is that going to catch New York off? Historically, it seems to play in the other team's favor if that's the case. I don't know how far this double dive DPS line goes. I really don't.
So I do want to say there are people who think Sabiolbi popped off this weekend. Like, was a madman on a tear.
Yeah.
Do you believe in that or no?
I think that they've positioned him to be able to do that. But I really wonder if the consistency is there anymore. I think he has put up a good performance. But that said, I really don't know how far this team goes. Yes, I think players can have their day. I won't chalk this up to good performance or just, completely write it off rather. But there again, you're also playing against the Chengdu Hunters, a team that it's not a good team. It's a little chaotic. So you're kind of given the space to be able to kind of perform up to a potential and kind of do things other teams aren't going to be able to allow you to do. And I think we did see that versus Shanghai, or at least limited in some way. What this team looks like against Guangzhou in the lower bracket has me scratching my head because it seems like the Charge are very sniper focused. And if there has been a criticism all season, it has been Sebiolbi's performance on these, mid to long range hit scans. And if New York continues to play with him, what does that look like? Do they have an answer to the Widow? Are they going to match the Widow? Do they sub in Nene? Where is Nene? I don't know. It's not. I wouldn't. Again, I wouldn't take away Sebiolbi's performance, but I do put some asterisks behind it. I do wonder if that's a couple things going right, finding the right team. Is that the selling point for this team going forward? Is that something you're willing to put your bet on? I'm not, personally.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the other teams that they're going to be playing against because I think Guangzhou is really interesting, right? But I want to quick talk about a team that has outperformed expectations, and that has been the Seoul Dynasty. The Seoul Dynasty come in 3-0 Hangzhou, and then they 3-0 Guangzhou. Both the Zhous got to go. So, I won't come up with those on the spot anymore.
Joe.
Uh-oh.
Joe.
Hello. I'm here.
Keep sleeping on Prophet. Wake up to a nightmare.
We need to put that on.
It happened again.
It would happen again, right? If we look at all the playoffs and we look at who wins where, it's funnily enough, the two weird playoff patches, you see Prophet and Gesture just coming back into favor, reminding everybody that they did win season 1 and they can put on a show for season 3 when you have such a weird playoff. So, yeah, I wouldn't be. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised to see Seoul make it out at second. Genuinely wouldn't. That's what we're sowing. I think that's the theme of the show for me is we're gonna reap what we sow. And every time we have these crazy kooky zany playoff patches that everybody's super excited about, but we don't really see much change in numberage. At least not in North America. I can't speak for Asia.
Change in numberage.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get these teams that kind of show up, have a lot of firepower, can pound early, and they don't have to worry about getting refined out. And that's the Seoul Dynasty. And I think I quickly identify why that is.
Yeah,
they have Prophet. They have Gesture. Fitz is not somebody to sleep on.
I wish he was better
weird.
than he was actually this season. Like,
sure.
He was kind of announced to me as just like a nutcase, but it was fairly confident.
I think Seoul's had some. I don't know about that team. Whether it's playing not double flex tank, but moving one of your flex tanks to main tank, adding in one of your two-way players to kind of come in and be an emergency kind of flex tank during these last few weeks. I don't know what's going on with this team.
In my mind,
bizarre.
they keep Glister, and this season looks a little different. And these playoffs might look a little different.
Sure.
But yeah, it's playoffs, right?
Here we are.
That's
That patch, baby.
just flip it on. Flip it on. Like, I mean, okay. It's not like absolutely the case that every time playoffs comes on that Profit and Gesture just turn it on. Like,
because they certainly did do it in season 2.
They did not, and they also didn't do it like during certain tournaments this year.
Sure.
Right? They did it for one. So, it's an interesting change. And okay, how would you feel about Seoul, for instance, winning the season?
Seoul winning the season, I think it's a lot more palatable. Maybe it wouldn't be if we were back in Blizzard Arena. Maybe if all the teams are playing against each other. Maybe if the travel plans go out as follows, and Seoul really kind of has the opportunity to properly poo the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I wouldn't be. But the world we live in right now, I'm not happy about it. But I think that would be much more palatable when looking at some of the other teams.
How do you feel about a Guangzhou Justice Grand Final?
Who wins that? I guess would be determinant of
Valorant. I think Valorant teams.
Oh, okay, yes.
win that one. A lot of great new coaching and player talent coming in.
I'm not happy about a Charge Justice final for the 2020 title, but if they're the best teams, I don't know. Like, I have to, for my own sanity's sake, I have to kind of quit being a curmudgeon at some point and just try to enjoy things. And if those are the two best teams, then so be it. That's what the game's gonna be. Then here we are.
I don't know why I feel worse about a Guangzhou Grand Final than I do about a Seoul Grand Final, but I do.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because they have Seoul in the name. It's like, oh, it's esports. I don't know. It's just esports.
Would it? Yeah, I guess Seoul would be. Let's see. Out of the teams remaining, is there a team I would dislike more going out as the second seed? No. Yeah, I probably would be Seoul. I wouldn't be mad at New York. I wouldn't be mad at Charge.
What if you get Seoul's
probably the last team?
You get Dynasty upsetting Shanghai.
If Shanghai doesn't get to go,
NYXL and then Guangzhou beats NYXL in Shanghai.
I'm gonna be pissed. Can you imagine?
Speaking of hypotheticals, someone go put $5 down for that line for me at your local betting store.
Oh yeah, that's.
Go put $5 down on my line at that line.
I don't think it's that terrible of a bet either. Good odds. The patch. You don't know what's gonna happen. It's a big patch.
Thanks, y'all.
I mean that. Yeah, it looked like a pretty good NYXL patch, like we said last week. Like just like if it
Every
was actually
seems like a good NYXL patch.
No,
bro.
but like okay, Hotbar is actually a player though.
Yes. Where has he been all season?
Not on Hog.
Sure. Again, like I agree that like a lot of things can be spun in NYXL's favor, but it seems like it never is the case. Sure. Is this the case? Maybe it is. I don't know.
Once you stop spinning in NYXL's
but I'm tired
favor.
of trying to spin things NYXL's way.
You don't get it. When you're at the moment of desperation, you're completely broken after having thought they can do it for 2 seasons, having basically played through 100% of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
After you're completely at your wit's end and it has transformed you, they will deliver. That's how it works.
Okay, good. Sure.
That's how the universe ticks.
Fantastic. Let's see it happen.
Let's see it happen.
I feel like we've had this discussion at the beginning of this season. I feel like we've had this discussion at the end of last season, in the middle of last season. Like, okay, what is NYXL going to turn on? Here's a hot take and a preview for. Well, maybe this will change if they actually look a little bit more consistent, and I think they have a chance to. I don't know that you can fix this NYXL. I think they're just kind of stuck and plateaued, and I really would like to see a big structural shift, like big, like massive.
Oh, God, Chad, don't overstate what I'm saying. I did definitely think Seoul looked like the better team. I'm just saying.
What this is chat. I don't get what show you guys listen to sometimes. I'm sorry. I don't know what station you're tuned into.
They latch on a couple of words, they latch on the feeling, and then they run with it.
What
They're like,
station?
"Are you saying NYXL's
What
gonna
station?
win?"
What Sirius XM satellite radio in middle of Kansas station are you listening to right now?
AM radio.
But
yeah.
Is this
NYXL.
where I talk
Good
about
team.
Wittgenstein's ruler, where I just teach the people something?
What?
You need to
See,
break.
there's a thing called Wittgenstein's ruler, right?
Is this like Occam's razor's brother?
Yeah, basically this difference, right? The opposite, right?
Okay.
Occam's razor is like, okay, let's take the what's the most likely scenario in that,
Okay.
and let's not like interpret like the chances because they look like cool, right? Wittgenstein's ruler is, if you interpret something or like think something in a specific way, it says more about you than it does about the thing that you talk about.
Okay. Yeah.
So you are being measured instead of the thing that you're measuring by saying some stuff.
Yeah.
So that's chat. You revealed yourself just now.
What did it reveal?
Extremely small craniums. Very,
okay.
very
Good. Let's just abuse the fans. Yeah, great. That's proven to be
Is-
successful in the past.
Is Occam's razor the imperial measurement of
Oh my god, not this one.
Wittgenstein's ruler? Is that what I'm understanding here?
No, it's that the American version is John's popsicle.
Oh man.
Blue lips and all.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I met Pepper Smurf on the road.
We need to fix your head, boy. We need to fix your head. I think that's a perfect time to call it. This has been long in the teeth. Like as John.
I do.
said-
So here's the thing: we can't stop it though, because there are two things I want to discuss quickly.
Okay.
Guangzhou. What's your read on Guangzhou here? So Guangzhou loses 3-0. We only saw them for one match. They lose to Dynasty. Are you at all worried about the number 2 seed in Asia falling to NYXL or most likely Seoul if they play again?
I think I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried. But I don't know that it's even fair to kind of position it as a worried. It is a little bizarre, but I think that's just the patch. I think Asia's style is really starting to show itself in the lower bracket with what I guess we're calling pig's feet. Thank you, Wolf, for the beautiful naming convention. With Hog and Sigma, which I'm still like not sure on, like how it works, why it works, that kind of thing. Again, something I'm gonna have to actually take some time to look at before next weekend. It looks to be something that Asia thinks is strong enough to be able to run on certain positions. Yeah, Charge I think has. I think they're very confident in running Happy exclusively. The other DPS seems to be a rotating door. I really wonder how that style versus NYXL is going to kind of match up. That's the kind of narrative I'm heading into that match with. Like, what does NYXL do against Charge? I won't say that the Charge has the upper hand because of that, but it is like the question I'm looking to see answered. Maybe I won't, but yeah.
And then the other question I had was, are you at all concerned about Shanghai Dragons right now?
Nah.
Nothing. There's a few people, and I want to get it out there for chat. There's a few people who are saying Shanghai didn't look super strong against NYXL in their one match.
Joe?
I mean, I didn't really see that. I mean, they dropped a map.
They did.
But when hasn't Shanghai dropped a map? I don't know.
That's
Like,
called
not
so. Yeah, they're definitely
not the cleanest team ever. But
No,
still odds-on favorite. Still look like the strongest team. Maybe not as clear as the past or in past metas, but I think that's always been the case.
I don't think it was like the best showing that I would have expected in that matchup, but
sure.
You know, again, they don't have to show up at 100% to beat most of these teams, just like 80%. And then it's a decisive 3-1.
Mm-hmm. They can call upon that championship air. I don't know what it is about some of these teams that just can kind of stay mentally tough throughout the whole series. And, you know, even 2 games up, you still have to beat Shanghai, and that's not an easy feat. They seemingly don't dwindle in performance as the series goes on. They have quite the large gas tank. So
yes, they do.
They drop a map. They drop a map. It is what it is.
Yes, they do. They drop a map. You're allowed to drop a map and still be a good team, guys. I'm gonna say it.
It's true.
True. There's kind of like sadomasochists in that. Anyway, have been over the entire season. Sadomasochist.
Sadomasochist.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Sadomasochist is it's a Philadelphia fusion coaching technique. Sadomasochist. Sado.
Yep. All right. Just check all of them boxes.
Nice.
I was really proud of that one. Dang.
I liked it. I just don't know if the algorithm will. We'll have to see.
I thought it was clever.
Gonna get tagged as a BDSM or something.
Now we will, because you said it.
I think we were already there.
Joe. Thanks a lot.
I mean, we talk about subs so often on this show anyway. Why do we never talk about tops?
Why don't we just let
All right, chat. Thanks so much for being here. We'll love you a ton. Hope you had a lot of fun today. Should be a nice long one for you to kind of digest over the next couple of days. Yiska, give us a big thanks to our patron producers, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah, you get it. Do it.
Right. Right. Thank you to Refined Bean. Wait, Refined Bean for the new pin, Battle Crab, Kochi Kopi, Lolshin, Rexane, Audi Compass, Kasha67, Chara, Nathan, Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fable Steven, Roger B, Owen, Chris R3444, Horbjörn. I listened to this podcast whilst on the toilet, in the shower, thinking of Yiska, and Blaukraut bleibt Blaukraut and Brautkleid bleibt Brautkleid.
All your L's and R's are the same.
Thank you.
It's so weird. Anyways, thanks so much for being patron producers. If you like the show, if you want to support it, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. We really appreciate it. Any level of support, and we've got some cool things. We'll be announcing when our next game night is on Wednesday. We need to do 2 of them this month because August got away from us a little bit because I was traveling. So we're definitely doing 2. And of course, if you stop being a patron or a sub, but you were last month, of course, you'll get the same patron perks and all that good stuff. New subs. Joe, I put it in the patron things, but who do we got for subs? I put it in the patron.
Boy, Peggy coming in with a new subbage. Suds and Bubbles. Specs GG. Miss Pixie Riot. Hopefully I'm getting that right. Apologies.
Serio. I don't know.
Maybe it's French. Who knows? And FK and Picasso. Thank you all for your subbage, patronage, support. And if COVID's got your wallet in a stranglehold, you can obviously go on iTunes and leave that 5-star review and support us there. It's free and it helps us, grow the show. So thank you to anybody who decides to do that. And thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely. Let's do some shout outs for the week where people can find us. I'm going to go first. Hey, I never go first. I'm going to go first. I'm kind of doing a couple of different things. Number one, we are kind of, if you're into more of like technology, audio, video, streaming, gaming type stuff, that's not specifically always around Overwatch or Valorant. I've got my Discord set up, discord.me/Kickedtripod. talking about my new PC build, stream redesign. If you ever need somebody to EQ your mic for you, I do that for free in one of the channels. You can also follow me on YouTube at Kickedtripod So youtube.com/Kickedtripodyt. Follow me everywhere else at Kickedtripod. I'm also doing a little bit more streaming. All my computer stuff gets here on Thursday and Friday. And then I'm not going to have my new graphics cards yet, so I'm going to have to put the old graphics cards in, but everything else is going to be new. And I'm really excited about that. So, I'm really, man, it's just going to feel good. I haven't honestly, I've upgraded a couple pieces, but I haven't changed this computer since 2014. It's been a while. It's time.
Damn, that's a long time.
It is a long time. Now, like, to be fair, it was a nice computer then. And I rode it to the ground for 6 years, but it's just time, you know? So,
true.
Anyways, Yiska, what about you, man? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you? What's going on?
Well, sort of like reporting season as well. Looking at some feature stuff. I want to get deeper into doing interviews. I really enjoyed doing the one with Christopher. Like the fine gentlemen that usually hang out here in chat. I gotta definitely, like, I think, for instance, Albert would be a dope guest for a contemplative interview episode. Yeah, and just overall covering playoffs. I wrote a piece on Friday just like talking about how the season went for some of those teams that went out and where the journey might go based on the information that we got. And maybe I will return to that just for the ones that got faded on day 2, right? So we'll see.
Yeah. Joe, what about you, man? Shout outs to the where can people find you?
It's on the socials everywhere, all the same usual locations. This week, what am I doing? Let's look. We're gonna remember together, chat. Here we go. I know one of them's we got some Valorant content, some speculative pieces, some think pieces. Looking at some of the narratives for the Overwatch League playoffs across multiple seasons and looking how they line up and maybe how they've repeated themselves, and then looking at a little general entry into why Roadhog is being played, why he's good, why he's bad, you know, for the chat. So that's what you can expect out of me this week. Go read the Christopher interview. It was very good. And the only reason why we sound as good is because Mr. Horseman over here set us up and got us all customizationed correctly. So go support that and go write that or read that stuff. Like his, subscribe, all that jazz.
Go.
Yeah.
Do you? So I was gonna ask you, are you gonna do any Shadowlands content?
Like creating it?
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it, but maybe. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't know where it would go.
Yeah. I've got the hankering for some WoW content and to make some WoW content, and I just don't know, like, I can't tell if it's a fleeting thing or not. It's been like kind of earworming me for the last couple weeks. And I'm like, is now the time? I don't know. I don't think so. It's like
we'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. Anyways, thanks again, chat, for being here. Hope you had a ton of fun today. We will be back on Wednesday at noon for another episode of Tactical Crouch. Until then, bye.